Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada. So we'll start from the next chapter, third chapter today, from sixth canto. I'll start offering with brief prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Supadantikam Namo Vishupadaye Krishna Prasthaye Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, welcome everyone and my blessings to all of you. So let me start the sharing my screen so we can continue with third chapter of sixth canto. Okay, how do you do this? Yeah. Okay. I'll go to the next slide. Okay. Very brief context. We started the sixth canto yesterday, first two chapters. We heard how at the end of the fifth canto, Parishit Maharaj heard about the terrible suffering people go through in the hellish planets. So he asked the question in the sixth canto, first chapter, being compassionate upon the souls, especially those souls who are doing impious activities, sinful activities, how they can be saved from this. Then Sukadeva Goswami establishes how bhakti is the best settlement process, and he talks about that starts with the chanting of the holy name, and to demonstrate that principle, that how bhakti is the topmost attainment, he starts to narrate the Ajamila pastime. That pastime goes from the first chapter till the end of the third chapter. So, and then we heard about how Ajamila was a wonderful Brahmana with nice qualities in the beginning of his life, and then to the association by seeing improper thing, uh, where a prostitute was with another man publicly. So he got swayed away from the path of religiousness, and he became sinful. He engaged in so many sinful activity by marrying the prostitute and having so many children with prostitute, like that we heard. And then finally, at the end of his life, 80 plus years age, that time he saw Yamadutas. That time he actually called out to his son Narayana, who was nearby. But just because he called out Narayana, we saw Vishnudevas personally came, four Vishnudevas personally came, and they released him from the bondage of Yamadutas. So now Parashit Maharaj, after hearing this pastime, he further inquires. Oh, of course, after they released the bondage, Yamadutas went away, Vishnudutas also went away. And we heard how Ajamila went to Haridwar and perfected his life, having got the second chance in his life now to practice perfection through devotion service. That's where we ended yesterday. Now, go into this chapter where we will start inquiring what did the Yamaraja, what did they talk, conversation between Yamarajas and Yamadutas. That's what he's asking now. Let us go through that chapter. So this is the high level overview of this chapter. Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring about Yamaraja's reaction when Yamadutas went back and relayed this whole pastime. What was his reaction like that? And then Yamadutas asked some questions to Yamaraja about who is the supreme controller. We thought you were the topmost guy. Is there another one like that? And then Yamaraja explains nice knowledge, who is the supreme controller, nature of the devotees, and the nature of Bhagavad Dharma, he explains. And then Yamaraja glorifies the process of chanting the holy name, followed by Sukadeva Goswami also glorifying the process of chanting. That is the high level summary of this chapter. Going to the first couple of verses, Parishit Maharaj just inquiring two aspects. First is when Yamadutas left back to the association of their master, who is Yamaraja, and they relate this whole incident to them, to Yamaraja. Yamaraja. What did Yamaraja say? How did Yamaraja respond like that? He wants to know. Second thing, it is unheard that Yamaraja's punishment also can be avoided. In the Ajamila story, we've seen how Yamadutas could not take him, could not punish him, because Vishnuduta stopped them from taking him. So it's unheard of this thing. People will have doubts. How this is possible? Please eradicate those doubts. That's the second question Parishit Maharaj asked. That will what these two questions are relating to how Yamadutas go to Yamaraja and ask them, and Yamaraja actually gives a translated knowledge, which is saying Bhakti is so glorious, chanting of the holy name is so glorious, and how Ajamila got saved, that is happens to all the devotees are saved like that. That's what is going to relay now in this chapter. So now, after Parikshit Maharaj asked that question to understand about conversation between Yamadutas and Yamaraja, Sukadeva Goswami responds to that questions. He basically says Yamadutas approach to Yamadaraja, and they ask these kind of questions. How many controls are there for jivas in the world? Who actually give the results of activities the jivas perform in 3 modes? That is one of the question they asked. And then another question they asked is, if there are many controllers and they both don't agree with each other on what kind of punishment to give, what kind of reward to give, then what is the problem can happen is, because two masters cannot agree with each other, then the actual people who needs to get punished or rewarded, either they don't get anything or they get double the punishment, one from each master, for example, or they don't get anything also. So that's a problem. There should be only one boss, like that they're asking. So the note here is indicating that Yamadutas were actually went on their service on the order of Yamraja to get the sinful people to punish. But they were not protected in their service. They could not carry out their service because Vishnudutas came in the middle and released Ajamila now. So they were thinking there is no need to serve such a master who cannot protect his servants like that. Number one. And then they had a doubt, if Yamaraja really is supreme and has all the power to punish sinful people, are there higher authorities like that? They got doubt. Because they thought, we're not able to do our service, and Vishnudutas were able to take care of that. So like that, they got doubt. So they're saying there can only be one supreme controller. And we thought you are the supreme controller and you will decide all the happiness and distress of all jivas. That's what we thought. But in this case, your order has been transgressed by 4 wonderful and perfect persons, this says. They're talking about Vishnudutas. Then, and they say, so this is the punchline, which Yamaraja likes. When Ajamila chanted Narayana, that word Narayana they mentioned, who? Yamadutas. These 4 men quickly came and said, do not fear. So, kindly tell us who they are. And they say, if you think it is beneficial for us. So, this is an interesting thing. So, one is they utter the name Narayana, holy name. Second thing, they are saying, we're not just asking for curiosity's sake because we didn't know we're asking, but only if it's beneficial for us, you tell us. Otherwise, not required, like that. So, in scriptures, we hear this kind of questioning in a few different ways, actually. One is like this. That means only if it's beneficial for us, we can tell us, number one way. Another way we commonly see, especially humble devotees ask questions like that is, if you think we can understand, please tell us, like that. So that's another way we hear in scripture sometimes. So that's a way how basically the essence of this section so far is that the Yamadutas are asking questions to Yamaraja. Is there a bigger boss than you? You're not a supreme controller? Is there somebody higher than you? So please tell us. Also, please tell us who these 4 people are, like that. Those 2 questions broadly they asked. Supreme Lord and who are these people? These Vishnu Dutas are actually devotees. So we'll hear from Yamaraja on the nature of those two also. So Yamaraja was pleased to hear the holy name of Narayana from his Yamadutas, it seems. So first of all, is why devotees are pleased when somebody speaks Krishna Kada, somebody speaks the holy name of Krishna? Two reasons. First thing is because they develop that love and attraction for Krishna. When somebody speaks that their name of Krishna, they're happy to hear that. Number one. Number two, when somebody who's not yet taken up devotional service, when they say holy name of Krishna, they're happy because they're happy that other person is making advancement just by speaking the holy name like that. In fact, that is why when some devotees go to the Harinam Sankirtan, public Harinam Sankirtan, where they go to chant the holy name publicly, then they ask others to chant. They show the mic to them. Can you repeat after me? Hare Krishna, and other person will say Hare Krishna like that. In fact, some of the Maharaj, like Mahavishnu Maharaj, specifically, I noticed, he does this many times actually when we go for Harinam Sankirtan. So that's what a devotee's nature is, to see others are going closer in their relationship with Krishna. And then they're also happy to hear Krishna Katha, Krishna's holy names always. So Yamaraja continues to speak. He starts to explain the position of the Supreme Controller. Who is the Supreme Controller? He says, there is one Supreme Controller who is superior to me also and other demigods also. That's the first, directly he's clarifying. He's not beating around the bush. Generally, when somebody asks us, are you the authority for this service? If we are not the authority, if we are not sincere, we'll say, uh, actually, for now, I'm supposed to give you this service. The actual authority is somebody else like that. But it's very straightforward. This happens even with other devotees we see in scriptures also. But here it is straightforward. Who is it? There's one, for example, Brahma and Narada Muni's conversation also. That comes in previous cantos, right? Second and third canto. That time also Narada Muni asks question. And Brahma straight. There is a superior control beyond me. There is supreme lord like that. Same thing. Here is saying there is superior control beyond me and also demigods also. And he is the lord of all moving and non-moving beings. This common term comes, non-moving beings, things come in scripture so many times. What does it mean? It means like plants, trees, like that. That's what non-moving things are. Then he says the same Supreme Lord manifests as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Gunavataras, for creation, maintenance, and destruction. And he gives an analogy like how in a cloth we don't see the individual threads unless you put it under a microscope or something. So the individual threads are there, vertical and horizontal, they're going. Similarly, Supreme Lord, by taking these Gunavataras, is helping in the creation, maintenance, and destruction, even though we don't see them directly ourselves. And then he says that Supreme Controller controls the entire world, like how to a bull, the nose is a sensitive organ, it seems. So we can put a rope, like nose, they call it, right? Nose through the rope through the nose. And then by moving little bit of the rope and using the sensitiveness of the nose, the bull is being controlled like that. Bull, it will say you go like this, go like that, right, left, right, like that. Similarly, Supreme Lord controls the entire world. That means everything is in his control like that. And then he says, he also blinds all men with names and actions through the ropes of his words in the Vedas. What is this referring to? This is referring to fruitive activities that are in Vedas also. If somebody is attracted to sense enjoyment, they'll be attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas that describe the you do this and you get that like that. So that's what this is referring to. And then is offered tribute by all classes of society in fear. So we know approaching Lord in the fear is the lowest form of submission. Higher than that is a duty. Higher than that is love. That we commonly hear, right? Any relationship, that's how the relationship can progress in terms of fear, duty, and love like that. So he continues to explain that actually uh, It's described that uh, you cannot understand them like that. He's telling basically. He's saying no one can understand them. Great demigods, great sages, they are free of lower modes, passion, ignorance. They're in actually seated in goodness. Even they cannot understand the Supreme Lord. What to speak of others that are in lower modes like ignorance and passion? So all the ordinary living entities, they cannot ascertain Lord's real position. Just like our body limbs, my hands, legs, they cannot see my eyes, even though they're all part of one body. They cannot see like that. Like that is giving example to explain that understanding Supreme Lord is not so easy. Actually, this point he explains in different ways in the coming verses. So then he describes, remember they were asking, who are those four people? So they are Vishnu Dutas, he's explaining the qualities of them. So, and he wants to convince them that they should not envy Vishnu Dutas. That's why he's telling the qualities of Vishnu Dutas, it seems. He describes how they are very attractive with form, qualities, and nature, almost like Supreme Lord, similar to Supreme Lord, like that. Because they are in the Vaikunta, they're coming from Vaikunta Loka. Usually, Vaikunta Loka devotees have the form similar to Supreme Lord. They also have four hands, like we discussed yesterday. And they have transcendental qualities like that. And they are also worshipped by demigods, he says. And that means they are higher end, not like you and me, like that is saying. And then their wonderful forms are rarely seen. That means they don't give darshan normally easily. And then they protect the Lord's devotees from enemies, Yamaraja. Yamaraja means himself, and natural disturbance also. That means Vishnudutas actually are there to protect the devotees. So now this point is important because this raises a doubt for the Yamadutas. If Vishnudutas are meant to protect the devotees, why are they favoring adharma? Because they didn't let our sinful person to come to our to be punished by us. So then Yamaraja thought that they might have that doubt. Then they is saying, how can fools like you understand truth about dharma? He didn't say like that. That is described by Acharyas. He's thinking, Yamaraja is thinking. That's why he elaborates on that point. That is not easy to understand religion like that. Even great religion, great sages also cannot understand dharmic principles easily. So he says, real religious principles are actually coming from the Lord only. And they cannot be ascertained by great sages, demigods, and siddhas also. What to speak about others, like human beings, demons, uh, we cannot understand so well. That's the point being here. Then somebody may say, oh, nobody can understand Dharma? No, there are 12 Mahajans who can understand Dharma, they are saying. What is that? 12 Mahajanas know the true Bhagavad Dharma, which is confidential. That means it's not easy to understand. Confidential not only means it's secret, it's an open secret. Meaning, even if you read, even if you hear, unless we get a mercy of a devotee, we cannot understand devotion stories easily. That's what is being described here. So that is confidential, transcendental, and not easily understood also. So if one understands it, he returns back to Godhead. How come? Because if somebody understands Bhagavad Dharma, what is the real meaning of understanding? Real meaning of understanding is applying in one's own life. So if you apply the principles that we learn, that means we already understood the principles. Then we can get the result, which is going back to Godhead is describing. So this is a famous verse where the 12 Mahajanas are quoted from always. This is coming from this verse. Swayambur Narada Sambhu Kumara Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Balir Vaya Sakir Vayam. All the 12 names are over here. Dvadasaite Vijanimo Dharmam Bhagavatam Bataha Guhyam Vishuddham Durbodham Yam Gnatva Asnute. Basically, this glorifying Bhagavad Dharma, how it's confidential, transcendental, like that. Second verse. First verse is giving all the names of different devotees, the great Mahajanas. Mahajanas means they understand the dharmic principles very well and they can give clarification to others as required, like that. So now, continuing further, after Yamraja explained about who is the supreme controller, and he also explained the nature of the Vishnu Dutas, now he starts to glorify the process of chanting the holy name. It is described, pure bhakti is parodharma. Parodharma means ultimate religious activity for us, ultimate occupational duty, ultimate religious principle for living entity is pure devotion service unto the Lord, beginning with chanting of his holy name. Remember, this is one of the item that is addressed in first canto, second chapter also. What is the ultimate goal of life? Like that they ask. Then it's bhakti. Performing bhakti is the ultimate goal of life is described. And what is the essence of all Vedic scriptures also? Same answer is given in second chapter of first canto. Then he says, just see the glories of chanting. See by Ajam's example only. He was so sinful, but at the end of the life, he chanted the name Narayana, so he got delivered. At least he got a second chance, and then after that he got delivered like that. So that is the glory of chanting, Yamraja is describing to them. And then to emphasize on the glory, he says not only proper chanting, even improper chanting helps a lot. How? First of all, he gives 2 points. One is chanting the Nama, Guna, Leela here. Rupa is not mentioning. Holy names, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord is sufficient to relieve one of all sin. That means we don't need to do any other process. Whatever we're doing, we stay fixed in the chanting and hearing process of Krishna consciousness. Then we'll be relieved of all sins. We don't need to do special atonement for that. Another point is, even let us say I'm not able to be so attentive in my chanting, even if I'm not able to pronounce some words clearly, then as long as I do not make any offenses in chanting, then it is still chanting has the uh, result. Basically result comes from the chanting. He's saying sinful Ajamila still attained liberation by calling out his son Narayana. He's again giving the example of Ajamila himself. So even though because he intended to call his son, but he got the benefit anyway. So like that, this is what is being described. Now, when we see verses like this, we need to understand carefully. On one side, this is glorifying the potency of the holy name, that how holy name is so powerful. Now, this doesn't give us a license to uh, don't care or chant with neglectful attitude, not trying to pronounce properly, not paying attention when chanting. That's not what is the lesson to be taken here. Only lesson to be taken is holy name is so powerful. If it's so powerful even with inattention, how about if I play attention? If it's so powerful if improper pronunciation is there. How about if I do proper pronunciation with respect and devotion like that? That's how we need to understand these sort of verses. So these are comes handy, especially in some countries. It seems they cannot pronounce Krishna. It seems Ra they need to pronounce with La. It seems Krishna they need to say. But even then, Krishna accepts the devotion service. There's a point being made here. So then, continuing, somebody may say, if chanting holy name gives such highest success you're talking, and so easily it gives success you're saying, then why do the learned people, Panditas, why don't they teach this chanting process first? And instead they teach about performing karma yoga? Nice question, right? We hear this common thing also. Basically, uh, common example we hear is, if you say Krishna consciousness is the best process, then how come there are only few people practicing it? That's a common question comes, right? So obviously, Prabhupada used to answer these kind of questions that to a diamond shop, who will go? Only people who are rich, people who know the value of the diamond, they only go like that. Prabhupada used to answer such kind of question. So here they're asking, why is not learned people teach chanting, instead they teach karma yoga like that? Then Yamaraja asks. So notice, this is not questions they asked in the verses is not there. our acharyas give commentary like this, and Bhagavad Subodhini, it's made it clear by Gauranga Darshan Prabhu for us. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur usually gives it in question answer format like this. So he says, Yamaraja is saying to Yamadutas, actually bewildered philosophers whose mind is dulled because of Lord's Maya, they're engaged in Vedic rituals. This karmakanda sacrifice, that karmakanda sacrifice, to get this, to get that, like that. So they cannot understand bhakti. Why is that so? Because they're engrossed in the gross material sense gratification. Because of that, they cannot get out of bodily identification easily. So because of that, if the fundamentals of spirituality starts with understanding that I'm soul, they cannot go even beyond that point of soul, because they're engrossed in material sense gratification, thinking that they're this body. So that means they'll do all things that they can hear as benefiting body only, nothing more than that. That is the point here. And the 26th verse they say, Yamaraja is saying, on the other hand, devotees are well protected, because the intelligent people wholeheartedly take to devotion service.
Hare Krishna, the audio has been lost.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, the audio has been lost. I think he's still talking. I will call him. Hare Krishna. No, nobody can hear you, Prabhu.
Oh, okay.
Now?
Sorry.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Yeah, I was muted. I don't know when I stopped, when you could not hear.
You said my people bewildered by Maya.
Can anybody tell me how far I need to go back? Is it just now or long time ago?
This one you were talking about why, if it is giving the highest success.
Did you hear my explanation for 25?
Yes, you just started 25. You can hear me?
Okay, no problem. I'll just cover the essence then, maybe from
Okay.
20th onwards. Basically, 20th verse is describing how people who do not have bhakti and people who are attracted to sense gratification, giving enjoyment to body only, they cannot see the higher purports of Vedas and scriptures. So they'll be engrossed in rituals only, the karmakana rituals. They cannot understand bhakti described. And then it describes how devotees who wholeheartedly take up devotion service and become devotees, they are protected. Even if they accidentally make some sin, they are protected by chanting Hare Krishna. In that context, I was explaining how we need to be careful as devotees to understand what are the 10 offenses, understand what are the 10 defenses towards offenses, so that we can avoid those 10 offenses as much as we can, like that. Number one. Number two, by cultivating the Trinadapi Sunichena mood, like mood of humility, mood of tolerance, mood of pridelessness, not expecting any honor and respect for ourselves, and giving respect to others, by these four things, we can actually develop, uh, we can overcome the offensive mentalities, offensive tendencies in us also. That is another aspect, trip for us to overcome the offenses like that. So that way, we need to be careful to avoid offenses and continue chanting sincerely. Then he gives the kind of like order. He says, Yamadutas never approach devotees like that. He says, first of all, he tells who are nice devotees. First of all, he says, devotees of proper conduct, and they have equal vision, and they are fully surrendered to the Lord. This fully surrendered to the Lord is the primary quality of a devotee of the 26 qualities. It's called Krishna Eka Sharanam. Once a devotee is surrendered to the Lord, then all the other qualities can develop. Like I think we were discussing yesterday. I forgot yesterday or today morning. Yeah. Basically, when we're trying to surrender to the Lord, when we're trying to develop love for the Lord, we're eager to please the Lord. So then we naturally avoid any kind of disrespecting Vaishnavas, scriptures, our holy name that are glorifying the Supreme Lord, that are helping us to reach the Supreme Lord like that. So there's the idea here. And then he says, um, actually, devotees are always protected by Supreme Lord's club. What is the name of the Supreme Lord's club? Kaumadaki. So by that club, they're always protected. So don't approach them like that, he's saying. And then he says, even Lord Brahma, I myself, Yamaraja, and even time factor, we all cannot punish them like that, he's saying. So actually, he gives more details in the coming verses of what kind of people who are doing some devotional activity you should not bring like that. He comes up in the next setting verses. Let me see if I think I skipped a slide. Okay, yeah, I skipped a slide. Now back to his. So then they might get a doubt who should be brought before punishment, because Yamaraja told them that devotees you should not bring here who are fully surrendered to Krishna. Don't bring him here like that. They told, right? Now, Yamadutas may get a doubt. Then who should we bring? Then he's describing, you should bring only non-devotees. So only non-devotees are punished by Yamaraja. Bring to me for punishment those non-devotees who are not engaging any kind of devotional activity. Some of the examples he's giving here. They are averse to taste of honey of Krishna's lotus feet. They do not associate with saintly Paramahamsas who are detached from material life. And they start enjoying household life and worldly enjoyment, which is the path leading to hell. So, meaning, so scriptures, whenever they say statements like this, they're not saying we should not have grihastha life. They're not saying we should not have marriage life. They're talking about uh, thinking marriage life sole and only purpose, only goal is to enjoy. That is what is being condemned in scripture. Otherwise, grihastha life is appreciated in many sections. Like in third canto, you might have seen Kardamani and Devhudi pastime also. It's glorified. Like how it's very helpful in devotion service like that. How the grihastha ashram actually serves other three ashramas also. Like that, so many glorification is also there in scriptures. So the point here is, while engaging in household life, we should not forget the main goal, primary goal of our life, which is to grow closer in our relationship with Krishna like that. So all our activities should be dovetailed or synchronized or aligned with service to Krishna like that. And then he says, whose tongues never chant the names and qualities of the Lord. If you reverse these things, this will give us instructions on what to do more and more in our life. So we should chant more holy names, more qualities of the Lord, more pastimes of the Lord. And whose hearts never remember his lotus feet. That means opposite is we should remember lotus feet like that. And who never bow down their heads even once to Lord Krishna. That means who never pay obeisances to Lord. So we should pay obeisance to the Lord. That is beneficial in the opposite sense. And who never perform any kind of duties toward Lord Vishnu, service towards Lord Vishnu. So then that means such kind of non-devotees who did not do any devotion service, bring them like that is telling. The last verse, he says, please forgive us. He's thinking, actually, by treating Ajamila, mistreating Ajamila, by improperly treating Ajamila, who is a devotee, we actually made a mistake. We actually made an offense at your feet, Lord. So, oh Lord Narayana, please forgive us. Like that is praying on behalf of himself and his servants also. This is another good quality we can learn. This repeatedly comes this lesson in Bhagavatam, that a master takes the responsibility for the mistakes of his servants. So that means when we delegate service, Prabhupada commonly gives this lesson also. When we delegate a service to somebody, it's our responsibility to choose the right person who is qualified for that service or who can be trained in that service properly so that they can engage in service nicely. Otherwise, we are the ones who are responsible for such service like that. So that's the other lesson we can learn from here. So he's asking forgiveness from the Supreme Lord. Who is asking? Yamaraja on behalf of himself and Yamadutas. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. Here, now after Yamaraja explained to the Yamadutas the glories of the Supreme Lord, the glories of Vishnudutas as devotees, glories of the holy name, how they should not bring devotees next time, should not try to bring devotees next time, how they should bring non-devotees next time, like that. Now Sukadeva Goswami also glorifies the holy name like that. So this is the heart of the devotees. Remember, Sukadeva Goswami is narrating this whole pastime about Yamaraja and Undudas and all that. Now he's adding his own realizations to this conversation, to this narration like that. What is saying? He's saying chanting of Lord Vishnu's holy name is the ultimate atonement for all sinful reactions, sinful activities. Remember, this is the message in the first chapter itself. Sukadeva Goswami also described to Parishit Maharaj. So now through this pastime is emphasizing that one more time like that. So that's why this whole Ajamila pastime was described, right? And then he's saying, chanting of Lord Vishnu's whole name is the most auspicious activity for the whole world, for everyone in the whole world. Not like, okay, for him it's beneficial, for me it's not beneficial like that. Sometimes devotees go through that kind of crisis also. Initially, practicing devotees may to go through a crisis, understanding or doubts like, oh, is this devotion service really helpful? That kind of doubt they'll start with. Then they'll slowly go to, yes, devotion service is helpful. Sometimes they'll go to the next state where it says, oh, devotion service is very good, but I'm not qualified for it. It doesn't work for me. No, devotion service is universal. It works for each and every one of us. Whether we are so intelligent, whether so dull, whether we have all limbs properly or some limbs are not working, doesn't matter. We still are qualified for devotion service because there's no eligibility in terms of physical limitations in devotion service. No material obstacle can stop devotion service. That's the other explanation given to Savai Punso Paradharma, Yedo Bhakti Adokshaja, Ahetuki Apratikata. Ahetuki, no material motivation, Apratikata, uninterrupted. That Apratikata is what is described with this usually. That nothing material can block my devotion service like that. When we're confident like that, we'll be happy always because our goal is to perform devotion service. So if nothing can stop me, why bother? I can be happy in my devotion service. I can look forward to more and more devotion service basically. So that's the other thing they're describing. Sukadeva Goswami is describing. Now he says, Bhakti is very potent, unlike the Vedic regular Vedic karmakana rituals. Because one who constantly hears and chants the holy name and Lord's pastimes, they can easily counteract sin. So such a bhakti is such an easy process. We can, just by hearing, we counteract sin. And he says, heart is purified only by bhakti and not by observing vows and Vedic rituals. Remember, we dealt with the subject matter in first chapter already. That how sinful desires in the heart, sinful tendencies, they won't go away with other process. But with bhakti, they will be wiped out clean, 100% clean. In fact, this is described in Nectar of Devotion also as one of the first of the six characteristics of devotion service. Klesha Agni. Remember, first two are Klesha Agni and Subhada. Klesha Agni means freeing from all kinds of diseases. How is that possible? Because it will wipe up all sinful tendencies. It will take away bija, uh, material desires. It will take away. It will take away avidya, ignorance. That is the glory of bhakti and chanting of the whole name is describing. Now, next he says, Sukadeva Goswami is saying, devotees never again take to material activities once they get the taste of bhakti. Because in the service of Krishna, they got some taste, they got some rasa. Then they don't get any other, and they don't they don't, even if they attempt material activities, they don't get same rasa in that, because that's not possible, because that's incompatible for us as spiritual souls. So that's why they don't enjoy that. That's why they don't go back to it. Simple. If I don't like it, I don't go back, right? If I don't like some food, I don't take it. Similarly, if I don't like material sense gratification, I don't take it, like that. But how will we develop that? By developing higher taste, developing spiritual taste in service to Krishna. Then other thing is describing is, whereas others who did not get the taste in devotion service yet, they'll be enchanted by lust, they'll be attracted by the lust, they'll be overcome by lust. So even if they perform atonement after doing some sins, because the sinful tendencies are not gone, and because the taste for material enjoyment is not gone, they'll go back to sinful activities again one more time. That's what he's saying. Whereas devotees are not like that. So that is a beauty of bhakti for us. So one of the barometer for us to see, are we growing in bhakti, is my attachment to Krishna increasing? Is my attachment to sense gratification is reducing or not? That is one thing we can see. And also we can always check in our bhakti, is my bhakti pure, unalloyed? How can we do that? We can slowly grow in bhakti in terms of not wanting sense enjoyment more, sense, sense enjoyment, not wanting freedom from suffering, not wanting freedom from problems, always trying to see how can I solve this problem, this problem, this problem, like that. Our whole life is spent like that. So by being freedom from wanting to enjoy, wanting to become free from all problems, we should focus on our relationship with Krishna instead. Then we can easily grow in bhakti like that. Now going further, since then, as Yamadutas see a devotee, they fear him and dare not look at him again, it says. So after hearing the glorification from Yamaraja and the position of great devotees, how and the glories of the holy name, they don't go towards any devotees, it seems. They don't close to devotees, they don't even see them, it seems. That's the greatness of bhakti. That Sukadeva Goswami established through these 3 chapters in essence. So essence of the last 3 chapters essentially for us is, oh, he's telling that Agastya Muni told this confidential history, it seems, to like that. So the essence of these 3 chapters now we're summarizing is that by performing bhakti, starting with chanting of the holy name under the guidance of devotees, so by the Bhagavad Dharma, Shravanam and Kirtanam process, we can not only avoid going to hell and suffer there, but we can actually experience transcendental bliss in relation to Supreme Lord service. Then we don't have any taste towards material activities that can drag us down to the hellish planets like that. Because the sense gratification has the potency, in a negative way I'm saying, potency to bring our consciousness down to lower levels like that. So that is the essence of these 3 chapters we heard. Now going to the 4th chapter. 4th chapter, the overview is like this. It's called Hamsaguhya prayers. Hamsaguhya prayers are prayers offered by Daksha. So we'll see the context in the first few verses. How did that come about? How did we enter into Daksha? Essentially, Parikshit Maharaj asked another question. He wants to know more about the secondary creation, how Praja was populated, living entities were populated in the universe. That's where Daksha comes into picture, because Daksha is one of the Prajapati who populated the universe, which we heard in the 4th canto already. That was the first incarnation of Daksha. First incarnation means first birth of Daksha. Now we'll hear in this canto, second birth of Daksha, second lifetime of Daksha, basically. So that's what we're going to hear. We'll see how Daksha performed austerities, and he sees Supreme Lord face to face, and he offered beautiful prayers, and then Supreme Lord instructs Daksha. That's what we're going to see in this chapter now. That's why it's titled Hamsa Guhya prayers. So going further, in this chapter, first section talks about how Soma means moon god, pacifies the Prachetas and offers daughter of the trees to them to marry like that. So we'll go into the detail now. The chapter starts with Parishit Maharaj wanting to know more about the secondary creation, like creation of demigods. How did the demigods come into being? How did demons, human beings, birds, bees, like that he's asking question about secondary creation. Remember? Visarga is the term used for secondary creation that is done by Lord Brahma, whereas Sarga is the term used for primary creation, which is done by Supreme Lord himself, where foundational elements are created like that, right? So he's asking more about secondary creation by Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma's secondary creation happens through his descendants. Daksha happens to be one of the descendants also. Kardamuni is one of the descendants. Like that, so many descendants are there for him. So, and also, he asks about the Lord's potency by which he brought about this creation, like that he also asks. Then Sukadeva Goswami starts to explain. So now Sukadeva Goswami wants to explain about Daksha and how he generated different progeny. But to go there, first he explains what are the conditions under which Daksha was took birth like that, second time. That's what he starts with explaining. So to do that, he starts with the Prachetas. How Prachetas were the sons of Prachin Barhi, if you remember, from the previous canto we heard. From, I believe it's fourth canto, I forgot where it is there. Prachin Barhi's pastime comes, where Narad Muni comes to tell him allegory story, right? That story comes. So that Prachetas go for, it's in fourth canto, because Ruddra Gita is in fourth canto. Prachetas go to do austerities under the water actually. And while they're going, we heard in the fourth canto how Lord Shiva intercepts them with compassion, with affection, because he loves the devotees. And he gives them beautiful prayers to offer to Supreme Lord. And they use that to achieve perfection. We hear that past time. So the same thing, a little bit of this is already covered in that chapter, fourth canto, but is repeated here again. But basically, when the Prachetas do so many austerities to create praja, right? That is the service they are given. So then, after doing those austerities, they come out of under the water. They come to see the land now, earth. But by this time, what happened is, Narada Muni did his service nicely. As a wonderful speech must for so many great souls in Srimad Bhagavatam. He goes to King Prachinabari, who was attached to doing all the karmic activities, karmakanda activities. We heard this in fourth canto. He gives him nice allegory, and then he convinces him that he's getting into the hellish life by killing all animals like this in the name of sacrifice. So he should do devotion service. So hearing this Narada Muni's instructions, Prachinabari takes that to heart and he renounces kingdom and leaves the kingdom and goes to the forest forever to practice spiritual life. In fact, it's described in that section that he doesn't even wait for his sons to come back from forest. He just goes. That means he is so convinced that purpose of life is very important. I need to develop in devotion service like that. So he goes to the forest and takes up devotion service basically. So now, because there is no king for that kingdom at that time, so the area was not well maintained. Everything was full of lot of trees, it seems, at that time. So everything, there's no land we can see. But why is that a problem? Because to do any kind of agriculture, to grow grains and for sustenance of the living entities, that Prachetas need to rule the kingdom, they need to have some agricultural land. But if everything is full of trees, they don't have agricultural land, right? So they wanted to clear some space. And because they are so elevated with the mystic powers also, the way they chose to clear the space was they generated from their mouth fire and also wind both. And with that, they started burning off all the trees in the forest-like place in the whole earth. That time, all the trees are getting burnt to ashes at the time. Then the moon god, who is called also Soma, he felt sympathy for trees because he is the maintainer of the herbs and trees. So then what did he do? He went before Prachetas and he wanted to pacify their anger so that they can stop this burning away all the trees to ashes like that. So then he requests them Prachetas with nice wisdom, explaining why they shouldn't stop that burning all the trees to ashes like that. He explains them. These are the few of the ways he explains in several verses. He says, do not kill these poor trees. Your duty as a king is to offer protection to citizens. Praja. And Praja not only includes human beings, Praja includes trees, animals, birds, like that. Prabhupada, in fact, makes this comment several times in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're very clear. Raja needs to give protection not only to human beings, to animals also. There should not be mass killing like this, what happens right now with the slaughterhouses like that. So now, that's why he's saying you're supposed to give protection to them, but don't kill these two trees, please. And these trees are there for a purpose. Supreme Lord created them so that they can give food for other living entities in terms of like fruits and grains they can give. And they're actually, this is another verse that describes how one living entity is food for another living entity, another living entity is food for another living entity, like that it goes. Let me see if we can find the verse quickly. If it's there, we can go to the detail of that verse also. Yeah, it's the 9th verse of this chapter. We are in 4th chapter now. He says, by nature's arrangement, non-moving beings, that means plants and trees, are food for moving beings, for others, animals, birds, human beings, like that. They're moving, right? Jivas. And then beings without legs are food for those with legs. Animals without hands are food for animals with hands. And four-legged animals and plants are food for the human beings. Now somebody may say, look, see, scriptures are telling animals are food for human beings. But why are you saying that we should not eat meat? So that is what is called taking out of context and incorrect essences grasping from the verses. Basically, it is true, animals are food for human beings also, but not for civilized human beings, not for human beings who have higher consciousness, not for human beings who are already ready to practice bhakti. This for human beings who are very, very low in consciousness, who cannot control because they are being affected by so much of mode of ignorance. They cannot control their tongue. They can only taste the mode of ignorance food. They don't feel a nice halwa or nice sweet or nice fruits. They don't feel that as tasty for them. So like that, for such kind of people only that is there. And even that is regulated with scriptural regulations so that they can get out of that habit also. Not that it's a free license, they can enjoy as much as want with that. Why? Because that will only degrade their consciousness like that. So that's the other thing we can note from here. Now he says, trees are actually needed for maintenance of this world. And then he says, follow the path of your predecessors. That means your previous fathers, grandfathers, they always took care of citizens nicely by offering protection to them. And please control your intense anger, like that also is describing. Who's describing this? Moon god, Soma. Why is he doing that? He is protecting his trees and herbs which are under his protection because he takes care of them. So that's why he's asking them like that. Going to the next verse. Let me see. The slides are not moving. Ah, good. Then he says, king protects his subjects like parents protect children, eyelids protect the eyes, and then husband protects wife, householder maintains a beggar. Okay, this is another principle. Grihastha ashram, we're all meant to, one of the main duty for Grihasthas is to give charity. So that's why it's describing how householders maintain beggar. Remember earlier in the class, we talked about how householders maintain other three ashramas, brahmachari, vanaprastha and sannyasi also. So this is a important duty for us as grihasthas. So we should not feel, oh God, this beggar is coming and he's eating away my money. Oh, this brahmachari is asking money, he's eating away my money. This sannyasi, I need to give money. Oh my God. We should not think like that. We should feel fortunate because by utilizing our money for the maintaining brahmacharis, vanaprastha and sannyasi, actually, we are getting purified because that money, whatever we get some kind of bad karma with the money also, we get purified and also we're getting spiritually elevated just by taking care of them. Why? Because they are focused on spiritual life and they're very, very fully focused on spiritual life like that. That is why that is possible like that. That's why it's the duty of householder to give charity. Bhagavad Gita also talks about this principle. And then learned person is friend of ignorant. These are different examples is giving to say that you as a king needs to protect the trees. Don't burn them to ashes like that. Who is saying this? Soma, moon god is telling. And then he says, you should see all living beings as the Lord's abode. That means residence for the Lord. That means as super soul, Krishna is there in every living entity. So you should see that. And by seeing like that, you actually satisfy the Supreme Lord also. This is the important principle. We also practice in devotees. We cultivate this vision of seeing how everybody is spirit soul, number one, inside this external body, whatever the body they are in, man, woman, animal, bird, like that. Number one. Number two, how Supreme Lord is residing in their heart, like that. Actually, when we see this thing, we can relate with everyone nicely without causing any harm to anyone, like that. Vaishnav Prabhu commonly talks about this when you go for book distribution. He says, we should look at the eyes of the other person when you're distributing book. When you see the eye, we can see the life inside them. We can see how the spirit soul is so active, so beautiful, like that. Like that. That's the beauty of great souls. They can see like that. But we can practice. And the more we do our sadhana nicely, we can also develop that vision of seeing everybody in relation to Krishna. Actually, this is one of the common messages that comes in second canto, especially seeing everything in relation to Krishna, like that. And even 11th canto also this message comes up again. Now going further, he says you should transcend the modes. That means you should not, with the anger that you got now, don't go down to lower modes, but inquire self-realization and then transcend the influence of lower modes, go to higher modes, like that. We know from Bhagavad Gita, actually, lust, anger, greed are the gates to hell also. So that means they're degrading soul to lower and lower and lives, like that. So he's asking, please transcend the modes, like that. And then finally, after offering these prayers, he says, why don't you marry this girl Marisha, who was brought up by trees? Okay, I have a typo here. I'll fix it later. Yeah, who was raised by these trees in the forest. Please marry her as your daughter, like that. He requests them, like that. That's the conclusion of the segment where moon god convinced Pechatas to stop their anger, to stop releasing the fire, to burn all the trees to ashes, like that. So that's how he protected trees. That's what we saw so far. Now, continuing further, what did Prachetas do? How did Daksha come into being is coming actually. This section is about Daksha's birth and initial activities. So Prachetas marry Marisha like moon god recommended. Prachetas beget Daksha as their son. And then Sukdeka Goswami is telling, please hear how Daksha created different types of jivas through his semen and also the mind. Remember, Brahma also created living entities through his mind and body. So here, Daksha also created through his mind, it seems, not just through semen. So with his mind, Daksha created different types of demigods, demons, human beings, birds, beasts, aquatics, like that, it seems. And then at some point, he was little morose. Oh my God, population is not growing so much. It's coming little bit is coming. Then he got the understanding that I should please Supreme Lord with my austerities. So he goes to a sacred place and performs lots of austerities to please the Supreme Lord. And naturally, Supreme Lord is pleased with his austerities and is satisfied with his service. By the way, this is the second life of Bharta, second life of Daksha, sorry. Second life of Daksha. First life ended with, remember, goat head was there after Lord Shiva's servants took away his head, like that. This is the second life of Daksha, okay? So then Daksha offered beautiful Hamsaguhya prayers to the Lord, it seems here. So these is described that these prayers are not original creation of Daksha. He's just repeating the previous prayers that already existed in scriptures, it seems. That's the important point also to note. And what is the lesson for us from that? That prayers we can offer in two ways. One is the standard prayers that are recited by previous devotees, pure devotees in script that are described in scriptures. And also we can compose our own prayers. But we should be cautious when you're composing our prayers that they're aligning with our Shastra and our conclusions of scriptures and conclusions of previous acharyas. That is why we learn from the prayers by the previous acharyas, pure devotees. We have a great opportunity to learn these prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam in so many sections where devotees are offering prayers like that. That is one more importance of listening to the prayers like that. And another importance of listening to prayers is from Bhagavatam, like this section, is we develop the right aspirations. What kind of aspirations we should have for Supreme Lord? Not like, can you make me health nice? Can you make me rich? Can you get me promotion in my office? That is not the uh, right aspirations for a practicing devotee. Of course, if that is the only thing that is bothering us, if we are totally bogged down, our mind is fully absorbed on that problem only, then we should take that to Krishna. Because at least that way we can talk to Krishna. At least that way we can think about Krishna for that problem that we are bogged down. But higher than that is go only with spiritual desires to Krishna. So going into the prayers, some of the summary review we can take a look. Basically, Daksha is describing how Supreme Lord is translated to Maya and its products also. This is a common theme that comes regularly in the scriptures, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. How Supreme Lord is above the Maya, above the material nature, above the modes of nature. He is not influenced by modes of nature. He created the modes of nature. So they cannot influence him. He can influence them. He can control them. He can utilize them like that. So that's the one important point. And then he is the real knowledge. He is the controller of all jivas. And people who are absorbed in material enjoyment, material objects, for they cannot realize Krishna's presence in their life. Whereas when we cultivate looking towards Krishna, reducing our sense gratification tendencies, increasing our service tendencies, then we can realize presence of Krishna in our life in different ways like that. In fact, Krishna gives us realization. One of the measure of our success in spiritual life as we grow is we can see real presence of Krishna. We can appreciate presence of Krishna. We can become grateful towards Krishna. We can understand Krishna is my well-wisher. Krishna is my protector. When we get these realizations, naturally we want to serve Krishna more and more, do more and more bhakti, because we are enjoying, really enjoying in the sense, in a positive sense, enjoying the relations Krishna is giving, enjoying in our relationship with Krishna like that. That is what is describing here. The opposite of what that is described here. And then Krishna, Supreme Lord is self-manifest. That means he doesn't have a reason. He cannot be appear by force. By his own will, he comes like that. Then his knowledge is unlimited, while Jiva's knowledge is limited. We know this principle from Bhagavad Gita itself, how Jiva and Supreme Lord are qualitatively one, but quantitatively are very, very different like that we know. And then he describes how people who are little bit knowledgeable in transcendental knowledge, they realize the impersonal form of Krishna, Brahmajyoti. But then devotees who are advanced in transcendental knowledge, they can realize the personal form of the Supreme Lord also. And then he describes how Lord is the reservoir of all spiritual potencies. In fact, this is one of the fundamental principles that we Gaudiya Vaishnavas have. Achinta Beda Beda Tattva, right? How everything is running because of the energies of Supreme Lord in this world. And energies are simultaneously one with Krishna and different from Krishna also. That's the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy we have. And he's the reservoir of all spiritual potencies is described. And then Lord is beyond all material faculties. That means my mind, my great thinking, my words, all that, beyond all that is great. But then if Supreme Lord gives me mercy, then with my words also I can glorify him. With my mind I can understand little bit. With my intelligence I can understand him little bit. Like that. That's the other aspect Prabhupada writes in the purport, basically, to contrast that point there. Because some people say oh, Lord is undescribable, so we should never glorify him, because you cannot glorify, because it's beyond our glorification like that. That is not accepted by devotee Vaishnava acharyas. They say, with whatever capacity and resources Krishna gave us, we glorify him. We utilize in this service like that. So the 30th verse, he is glorified as cause of all causes. This we know from Brahma Samhita also. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That means he is the source of everything, including all of us and all the resources we are seeing around us, including the whole creation is coming from him only. That so is the cause of all causes. Of course, there is temporary causes, interim causes that we may see, but he is the ultimate cause like that. Then actually, okay, that may be going to another thing. This should not make us go into wrong philosophy. If I make a mistake, Krishna is the cause of it. If I make a sinful activity, Krishna is the cause of it. So Krishna should get punishment, not me. So that we hear from Bhagavad Gita also. The 5 factors of action, how I am contributing to the action also, how Supreme Lord is contributing to action, material nature is contributing to action, all that we see. So that we should not forget. Okay. Then he describes how, even though apparently externally it appears Gnanis and Bhaktis differ in their points of view, actually their goal is one Supreme Lord only. They may realize one aspect of Supreme Lord only, but their goal is same. And the Supreme Lord exhibits his transcendental names and forms to show mercy on us, because he comes and does different activities so that pure devotees can release his activities, and devotees like us can get attracted to those activities like that. And then he repeatedly says, I offer my obeisances to him, I offer my obeisances to him, like a common thread here. And then he also says in between that may that Supreme Lord be pleased with me, may that Supreme Lord be pleased with me, like that. And also finally he says, may he fulfill all my desires. What are his desires? His desires is to do the service given by his superiors to create praja, to populate the universe. That is his service. That is his desire right now. And then going to the next section. Now, after hearing these beautiful prayers offered by Daksha, Supreme Lord is pleased with his prayers and his austerities, and he appears before him. And the Lord's beautiful form is described in this section, how he appears like that. Let me see if I can go explain some of the aspects. He says his lotus feet were resting on the shoulder of Garuda. That means he came on top of Garuda. And then he came with 8 long, beautiful arms, not 4 arms, 8 arms with different kinds of weapons. He was in yellow garments with deep bluish body, cheerful eyes and face. He was wearing a long garland of flowers. He was wearing, has a Kaustuba jewel, Srivatsa mark, and gorgeous crown. His earrings were resembling sharks. Even in this Kartik month, we meditate on the Damodarachkam, right? Makara Kundalam, like that. So, and golden belt on waist. His arms have golden bracelets. He had rings on his fingers, and he had ankle bells on his feet. Supreme Lord Hari was so nicely decorated, and he was looking splendorously attractive, basically. So, and not only that, like Narada Muni in the first canto, Vyasdeva, when he's meditating, he sees Supreme Lord not alone. Prabhupada also used to say, Supreme Lord is never alone. That's why when artists draw a picture of Krishna alone, so Prabhupada used to say, no, Krishna is not ever alone. At least cow will be with him, peacock will be with him, other devotees are with him, like that. So similarly, our Yamuna river is with him, like that. So he was accompanied by great devotees, it seems, like Narada Muni, Nanda, and several demigods led by Indra, it seems. And he was glorified by Siddhas, Gandharvas, and Charanas, it seems. Supreme Lord is always glorified by his devotees. So now, after seeing this beautiful form of the Lord, right before Daksha, Daksha offered Dandavat Pranams, and he was very pleased by seeing the wonderful form. That form gave pleasure to senses, Daksha's senses, it seems. Energy is given just as rivers are filled by waterfalls, it seems. Then the Supreme Lord starts to speak. He says, your life is successful. How? Because of your austerities by which you attain devotion. That is the important point. Not just austerities appreciating. Through austerities, you achieve devotion. And through your great faith directed to me. So the devotion he achieved also through great faith. That means when we also practice devotion service with great faith, at that time we can also achieve perfection in the devotion service like that. And then he says, I'm actually pleased with you. Why? Because you're endeavoring by your austerities to fill my desire for increasing population in the world. That means because Daksha is engaged in doing service given by superiors, which is the mission of the Supreme Lord, that's why Supreme Lord is pleased. Similarly, when we serve our Guru and Sadhus and Vaishnavas in the mission of the Supreme Lord, then we also please our Supreme Lord also. Supreme Lord will be pleased with us. We can be assured of that. Because Krishna is personally telling like that. Because you are fulfilling my desire. What is the main desire of Krishna? So that all the living entities go back to him and enjoy eternal happiness. So if we do our little part towards that, Krishna is so happy and is pleased with us. That is what we want as devotion service, right? Anukulyana Krishna Anushilana. That is the whole essence of devotion service, core of the devotion service heart. And then it says, you are all my vibhutis. Who are all? That all means who are all those? Brahma, Shiva, Manus, and the demigods, Prajapatis. They're all working for everyone's welfare by increasing the population. That's why he's saying you are expansions of my marginal energy and incarnations of my various qualities like that. Vibhutis means opulences like that. Remember Vibhuti Yoga, 10th chapter of Bhagavata, opulences of absolute like that. Then, let me go to the next slide. Okay, I think I completed the slide. So these are, and then he describes the Lord's form according to Karma Yoga. So basically, austerity, my heart, austerity in the form of meditation done by Karma Yogis is my heart like that. Vedic knowledge as hymns and mantras are my body. Like that, he describes his form in terms of Karma Yoga, in terms of Bhakti Yoga, in terms of Jnana Yoga. Let us see the verse related to Bhakti Yoga. He says, I alone existed before the creation. I alone will exist after the creation. And I alone exist now. Nothing exists outside of me or inside of me. Like that. Remember, this sounds like a Chatusloki verse in the second canto we hear, in the 9th chapter of second canto. This is similar to that. Actually, the verse also sounds like that. Aham evasam evagre nanyat kinchantam bahi. So basically, I was there before also, because I'm always, even before the material creation is there, I am there before that. That's the point coming out of here. And he says how the Lord is the cause of the universe. And he says, I instructed Burma to perform austerities. That's how he got the power for creation. I gave the power for creation like that. And then he says, accept Asikni, the daughter of Panchagna, as your wife. He's telling whom to marry. Remember, to Supreme Lord, to Kardamuni also told like that. In 2 days, Swayambhu Manu will come with his daughter Devhuti. Then you can marry. She is a qualified wife for you. Like
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we can't hear you.
thank you, Mati, for speaking up. Sorry, I don't know where I stopped. Let me see. Maybe a couple of verses ago. Yeah. Basically, Supreme Lord is telling him to marry Asikni and beget hundreds of children. So what we are discussing specifically is Supreme Lord, even though he gave personal darshan to Daksha, Daksha did not get the eternal bliss of Krishna Prema, of Bhakti. He's only got the lower side, karmic, karma kanda and material enjoyment only is still engaged in. Even though he's doing that service of Krishna by populating popular universe with people, it's described why that is so is because he made an offense in the last life to Lord Shiva, who was a devotee of Krishna. Because of that offense that he made to the devotee, that offense is not fully removed, it seems, even in this life also. That gives us the importance of being very cautious in dealing with devotees, not to offend them. Offenses are very hard to overcome. So see, even sins can be overcome easily, but offenses very, very hard to overcome. That's why we should be careful. That's one more lesson we can learn from this chapter. And then it says, your children also will be captivated by Maya. They will also engage in creating population. However, because of my mercy, they will offer beautiful presentations in devotion, like that it says. And then after instructing like this to Daksha about having the proper wife, like that, he also disappears from the scene. That's how the 4th chapter ends. Now goes to the 5th chapter. 5th chapter, let me see slide. Okay, I want to pause there to see if any comments or questions are there before we go into next chapter. Any other comments or questions are there? Because only we have few more minutes. I want to just make sure in case you have any comments or questions, I can take them. Otherwise, we'll continue a little bit more in the next chapter. Okay, good. Okay, so we'll go to cover the next chapter. This is the 5th chapter. So far, in the last chapter, what we heard about Daksha doing purification. Before he does his service, he went to do austerities to please the Supreme Lord. That's a lesson also for us. We need to purify ourselves before doing any service. We need to seek permission. We need to seek blessings from our superiors, our guru, before doing any service. And then we can engage in the service nicely, because service becomes successful at that time. So, and then Supreme Lord personally appeared and he gave him blessing. He told him that you'll get so and so wife you marry, she's qualified for your service, like that. Then Supreme Lord disappeared, we heard, like that. Now, this chapter starts with basically Narada Muni. The whole chapter has some interesting phenomena where Narada Muni is directing the children that Daksha produced, the sons that Daksha produced, to devotion service, basically. That results in Daksha criticizing Narada Muni. That is the essence of this chapter. I don't have detailed slides for this chapter, so we'll use this slide to discuss. While I'm reviewing from book, I'll see and tell you. I'll try to prepare some slides and send you after the class. So in this chapter, basically, Daksha begot 10,000 sons from the wife that Supreme Lord told him to marry. Her name is Asikni. And those sons are called Haryasvas. That is the names they're called as a group. Haryasvas they're called. And they were all beautiful qualities, it seems. They're all well behaved, and they were obedient to their father Daksha. So Daksha gave them instruction. You all should produce children now. So then naturally, Vedic culture is we need to purify ourselves properly before producing high quality children. Otherwise, we will not get good quality children. So they went to the forest. Specifically, they went to Narayana Saras, it seems, where great sages live, to do the austerities that they want to do. But the but is Narada Muni arrives there. Narada Muni sees them, that they purified themselves nicely, and they're inclined towards the activities of Paramahamsas. He understands that they are really qualified to become Paramahamsas like that. He understands. So one day Narada Muni approaches them, and Narada Muni thought these are very pure-hearted and qualified people. So they should become brahmacharis and engage in devotion service instead of getting into family life like that. Remember, in Vedic culture, everyone is trained as brahmachari first, and they're trained fully on spiritual life. And if they have sufficient determination and sufficient strength to practice brahmacharya, they'll proceed like that and takes the sannyas directly. They don't go to grostha. But there are some brahmacharis who may not have so much determination, so much spiritual strength to continue brahmachari. Those people will take grostha ashram like that. So that means Narada Muni is such an expert spiritual master. He could assess that these guys are qualified to go directly to spiritual perfection. They don't need to take this path of grostha life like that. So that's why he starts to instruct them. How does he instruct them? He instructs them with an allegory. What does the allegory mean? Allegory means not some real history or real pastime, but some imaginative story to drive a point forward. So sometimes these are used by even great devotees like Narada Muni to drive a point home without hurting others' feelings and without directly hitting the nail on the head, so to say. Basically, that is helpful even in the preaching also to some people. Basically, sometimes we may not be able to tell directly, you don't do this. Some people may not be ready for direct instruction like that. Some people are ready. They're obedient. They're eager to receive such instruction like that. Some may not be ready for such instruction. In that case, we need to be careful to give instruction politely, without hurting their feelings, without demotivating them from devotion service, and still giving them enthusiasm to continue devotion service to the next step. Like that, we need to be careful. But Narada Muni is expert. What kind of instruction is needed for Dhruva? What kind of instruction is needed for Prahlad Maharaj? What kind of instruction is needed for this Haryasvas? He is expert. So that's why he starts to describe an allegory. Let me see. It's already 8:02. I think I'll cover the allegory with detail in the tomorrow's session. Good thing is a couple of chapters are very small. Like the next chapter, sixth chapter, is the progeny of the daughters of Daksha also. As a simple chapter. And seventh chapter is the story how Indra offends his spiritual master Brihaspati. And then eighth chapter again is just about Narayana Kavacha, all the mantras of Narayana Kavacha only. So we can go through them. So tomorrow we'll continue. I'll pause here in case anybody has any comments or questions. So let me see. Stop sharing. Anyone has any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll continue tomorrow. Sorry for the interruptions in between. I didn't realize that my headset thing button is getting clicked with my hand, looks like. Yeah. So I'll be careful next time. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll continue tomorrow.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, Srimad. Yeah,
Right.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kupasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.